Hey, it's Warwick here from B-Ray. I just thought I'd share a bit of an experience that I had today with a customer, actually based in the UK, but purchasing for family members back in South Africa, in Cradle of Humankind in Gauteng province. They were chatting to me about how they've been paying somebody or doing a barter exchange to have somebody use to extract their honey from their supers so that they can get a quicker turnaround on the extraction because they didn't have budget for a honey extractor. And this is always a bit of a query for me. I mean, we used to offer this as a service in the shop. We used to rent out an extractor rather than have people bringing their stuff to the shop and then we do it there. But as it turned out, there were a couple of issues with that we didn't really like, and so we stopped offering that service. But in light of that, there are quite a few people out in the beekeeping industry that will effectively charge you a portion or a quota of whatever honey they do extract on your behalf. So some people take 50%, some people take 30%, whatever the case may be. Some will charge, say, 5 to 10 rand a frame to do an extraction, so call it 100 rand a super. Sometimes it might even be more. And that equates to probably around a tenth of the value of the honey from a full 10 frame super being extracted, which should give you around 9 to 11 kilograms of honey, depending on what kind of honey it is and all that kind of stuff, and how thick the comb is. But how does a honey extractor increase your production? Essentially, what ends up happening whenever you take something that's take a super off, which is full of honey, and you uncap it, you extract it, you put it in a spinner, you bottle of honey, you put the frames, which we now refer to as wet frames, and a wet super, because you never get all the honey out. You only can get about 85% of the honey out anyway. Really, tops will probably be about 90%. So when you do return the frames that are now being extracted, when you return them back to the super that they came from, which is the ideal situation, the comb is still wet. It's still going to have honey. So when you put that frame back in the super and then that super back on a hive, ideally the one that it came from, it's still wet. The bees are going to sort of clean it out and fuss over it for a couple of days and that sort of thing until they start refilling. Now, the beauty of using a honey extractor, right, for this process is that if you're harvesting one night, so you go out Monday night, you harvest the supers, bring them back to the house or to the factory or the plant, whatever you've got that you're using, you do the extraction. Once that's done, you send the stuff back. Overnight, you're going to take it back the next evening. You put it back on the hive, and essentially what ends up happening is that you've got to have a wet super now. So the comb doesn't have to be rebuilt because all you've done is uncapped it. You've uncapped the seals and extracted the honey. So all the honeycomb's still in place, majority of it anyway, if you're good with uncapping and didn't destroy too much of the comb in the process. Put that hive or that super back on the hive, and literally if there's still a flow of blossoms, whether it's eucalyptus, sunflower, lychee, grenadilla, passion fruit, whatever it is, orange blossom, etc. Take your pick. Whatever flow is happening in terms of nectar, as long as the bees have got access to more of that, they could literally refill that super within 7 to 10 days, which is magic, right? I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. So the entire sort of case study for honey extractor is pretty much that if you had to extract the wax or the comb and then squash it and press it, now what you're doing is that you're forcing the bees to having to replace the comb before they can actually just refill, especially while there's a honey flow on. So in the time that it takes them to rebuild all that honeycomb that you've taken off because you don't have a honey extractor and you've squished the stuff and you've pressed it, or you've used a conical strainer, the problem is that you've lost out on potentially 2 more harvests using that process, pressing the honey out of the comb and destroying the comb in the meantime, as far as honeycomb storage goes in the hive, versus just pulling them off, putting the frames in the extractor, and then putting it back on the super and back in the hive. Literally all the bees have to do now is refill it, cap it, and done. So this effectively has the potential for you to double or even not triple your normal harvest. So yeah, that's what we recommend. If you can afford the budget, it's pretty much usually your first harvest would cover the cost of an extractor anyway for 5 to 10 hives, depending on what quantity of hives you've got or budget that you want to spend. But essentially, at least 10 hives would cover the cost of a startup extractor, and you can make it back within a couple of weeks, pretty much, because you can have a reharvest in that little of time, for 14 days, literally, if you've got pollen and nectar available. All right, fantastic. Thanks, and be in touch. Keep watching. Ciao. Share and like below. Bye.